is nothing but something like server and which is present at the remote location. If I consider cloud computing, we have to remember two things, that is deployment model as well as service model. So what are the type of cloud? Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud as well as community cloud. One second. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on digital fluency, and the topic is cloud computing. I am Revati from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, first grade college. In my today's session, I am going to deal with what is cloud. Along with that, I am going to deal with what is cloud computing. Along with that, I am going to deal with deployment models, cloud service model. Along with that, I'm going to deal with difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, as well as software as a service. Along with that, I'm going to deal with cloud service provider. So these are the topics I'm going to cover in my today's session. And dear student, from the examination point of view, this is also very important topic. But before going to start my today's session, let's recall the topic which I have covered in my last session. So dear student, there I started with introduction about IoT. Then I have discussed what is Internet of Things. Along with that, I have covered the components of an IoT. Along with that, I have covered Internet of Things applications. Along with that, I have covered Industrial Internet of Things. Along with that, I have discussed the key benefits of IoT. And all these topics are important from the examination point of view. But in my today's session, at the beginning, I'm going to deal with what is cloud. So what is cloud here? Here cloud is nothing but network or internet. Now, my question is, why I required network or internet? Suppose if I want to communicate with my friend, I want network connection. So dear student, for that I required internet. If two mobile phone or two computer want to communicate each other, one is in Mysore and one is in Bangalore. Now both the devices or both the computer or both the cell phone want to interact with each other. For that, I required network connection. Interaction means what? Sending data, receiving data, making a video call, etc. So, for that I required internet or net connection. So, here cloud is nothing but the network or internet. In other words, cloud is something which is present at remote location. So, here cloud is nothing but something like server and which is present at the remote location. That means we don't know where the cloud is present, but we are going to get the services. For that reason, I'm going to use the word remote location. So here, cloud can provide services over public network or private network. That is nothing but wide area network, local area network, or virtual private network. That means, as I know that it is present at the remote location, and to access all the services which is present in the remote location, I must require network connection. And what type of network connection I required? It may be LAN, WAN, or it may be VPN. So dear student, the applications like email, web conference, customer relationship management executes on cloud. Anyway, if I consider email, within fraction of second, I can able to send the email because of the cloud technology. Now, I'm going to have what is cloud computing. So dear student, we came to know that cloud is nothing but the internet or network. And what is this technology? Here, it is a technology that uses remote server on the internet. So here, cloud computing uses remote server on the internet to store the data, manage and access the data online rather than local device. For example, dear student, think that I have local server and I'm going to store all the data in the local server. Now, only the user, that means who is going to own that local server, can able to access the data or store the data as well as manage the data. Suppose if same data is managed by 100 users, by using local server, it is not possible. So what I required here? I required remote server. So dear student, where these remote servers are present, all the remote servers are located at remote location. So the data can be anything. Data may be file, image, document, audio, video, or etc. So here, cloud computing is a virtualization based technology. So what is cloud here? It is nothing but the virtualization based technology. The main aim is to provide remote server that allows the user to create, configure and customize applications via an internet connection. That means if I consider remote server is capable to hold the data, manage the data as well as application, and to access applications as well as data which is stored in the cloud, I required internet connection. And the cloud computing is represented as cloud. So it is going to represent as cloud. So dear student, the cloud technology includes development platform. That means it's going to provide the platform to the user. That means they can able to develop their own applications. Even it's going to provide hard disk. There's nothing but the storage platform. Even it's going to provide software application as well as database. So what is cloud? It's nothing but the storage, and it is nothing but the remote server. By using cloud, user can able to development. That means they are going to get the platform to develop applications or programs. Even they are going to get the hard disk. There's nothing but the storage facility. Even they are going to get all the application softwares. Even they are going to get the database. But what is the use of cloud computing? Users are going to pay only for their request. That means if they request any storage, only for that they are going to pay the money. So here cloud computing is mainly based on the demands, based on the user demand. The remote server is responsible for allocating the resource. So if I consider cloud computing, what are the things we are going to come across? That is development platform, storage, that is nothing but hard disk, applications along with database. So operations on the cloud computing, that means what are the operations user can able to perform on the cloud computing? That is, user can able to develop new applications as well as service, because it supports development platform or it provides development platform. Even user can able to store the data or capable to take backups and recovery of data, because cloud provides hard disk. Even user can able to hosting blogs as well as websites, because it is nothing but the remote server and it provides storage. So user can able to host their blogs as well as websites. And here cloud computing is also responsible for delivering of software on demand. That is nothing but the software applications. And here cloud provides analysis of data along with that streaming of videos as well as audios. These are the operations on cloud. Now, my question is, why we require cloud computing? Now, dear student, before going to explain why we required cloud computing, let me to consider the simple example. That is, think that I have car. So what I have car. Okay. Now, I don't know how to drive the car. What I don't know? I don't know how to drive the car. So what I want to do? I want to hire a driver. So what I want to do? I want to hire a driver. Fine. If I hire a driver, I want to pay. Yes or no? I want to pay salary. At the same time, I want to maintain the car. I want to maintain the car. Maintaining in the sense what? Servicing, service, fuel, then all the other services, all those things are comes under maintenance. Now, if I consider this example, what is the disadvantage? I required more cost in order to pay to driver as well as maintenance charge. So, this is the example which is related to local server. Local server. So, what is local server? Think that I have high configured laptop. Now, to configure this laptop as local server, I required one person. Now, once I configured laptop as my local server, I need to maintain that server. So, what is the disadvantage? Maintenance charge, all those things are disadvantage, because I required cost. Along with that, I'm going to waste the time. Instead of that, I can go with remote server. I can go with remote server. That means I'm going to pay the money for that server and I'm going to use the services which is provided by the remote server. Similarly, instead of having my own car, I can able to use Ola or Uber. I can able to make a call and I can able to book the car. Based on the distance, I'm going to pay the money. That's it. I won't pay any extra money. So, it reduces cost. Similarly, if I consider cloud computing, small as well as large IT company follows traditional method to provide the IT infrastructure. That means if I consider small scale industries or large IT companies, they are going to follow traditional IP infrastructure. That means any IT company, they need server room. That means they are going to have one separate server room. To maintain that server, they are going to hire some people. Okay, so they require separate server room. That is the basic need of IT companies. That means if I go with traditional method, then they must have server room. In the server room, there should be database server. That means if they have server room, then they must be data server, mail server, networking, firewalls, router, gateway, modem, switch, etc. Along with that, they require query per second, means how much queries or load will be handled by the server. Configurable system along with high network speed and maintenance engineering. Okay, to establish these kind of IT infrastructure, we need to spend lot of money and we are going to waste the time. So, to overcome this disadvantage, we are going to use cloud computing. So, to overcome this disadvantage, we are going to have cloud computing. Then, the certain services and models working behind scene, making cloud computing feasible and accessible to the end users. That means if I consider cloud computing, we have to remember two things, that is deployment model as well as service model. Because of these two models, the cloud computing is going to work fine. So here, deployment model. So what is this deployment model? So deployment models defines the type of access. That means the different kinds of clouds. Which are the different kinds of clouds we are going to have here? Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid and community cloud. So here, deployment cloud tells where the cloud is located and how we can able to access and what are the type of cloud. So what are the type of cloud? Public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud as well as community cloud. If I consider public cloud, so what is this public cloud? It is open to all. So all can able to store and access information. So all the user can able to store the information, access the information via the internet connection, and they uses paper usage method. They uses paper usage method. For example, think that I'm going to visit vegetable shop and I want to buy some vegetables like potato, carrot, cauliflower. So based on my demand, that means I'm going to instruct the shopkeeper that I require 1 kg carrot. For 1 kg carrot, I'm going to pay the money. Similarly, if I consider cloud, I'm going to demand the resource, and which resource I demanded, for that I'm going to pay the money. So it is pay-per usage method. So public cloud computing resources are managed and operated by the cloud service provider. So dear student, when I consider cloud computing, in cloud computing, we are going to have third party. So who is this third party? That is nothing but the person or the company responsible for managing all the cloud services. So dear student, that is known as cloud service provider. So we are going to send the request to the cloud service provider that I required these resources from the cloud. For that, I'm going to pay the money. So here, to manage all the resources and to operate all the resources in cloud, we are going to have cloud service provider. That's nothing but CSP. So example, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud. This is the cloud service provider. If I go with IBM supports IBM Smart Cloud Enterprise. If I go with Microsoft Google App Engine, Windows Azure Service Platform. These are the example for public cloud. Now, if I go with private cloud, the private cloud is also known as internal cloud or corporate cloud. It is used by the organization to build and manage their own data centers. For example, think that if our college have any cloud, then that is the example for private cloud. So here, private cloud is also known as internal cloud or corporate cloud, and it is used by the organization to build and manage their own data centers internally or by the third party. For example, think that suppose if I own any cloud, then it is the example for private cloud. It can be deployed. That means it can be deployed by using open source tools such as OpenStack. That means I can able to deploy private cloud by using open source tool OpenStack. Based on the location and management, National Institute of Standard and Technology divide the private cloud into two types, that is on-premise private cloud and outsourced private cloud. Now I'm going to have my third type, hybrid cloud. So what is this hybrid cloud? The name itself indicates that it's nothing but the combination of private cloud as well as public cloud. So here, hybrid cloud equal to public cloud as well as private cloud. Now, the hybrid cloud is partially secure. It is partially secure because it combines public cloud as well as private cloud, because the services which are running on the public cloud can be accessed by anyone. That means it is public to all the user. While the services which are running in the private cloud can be accessed only by the organizational user. So dear student, let me to consider some example for hybrid cloud, that is Google application suite, that is Gmail, Google app and Google Drives, even Office 365, that is MS Office on the web and OneDrive. Even I can able to consider Amazon Web Services are the example for hybrid cloud. My last type is community cloud. So what is this community cloud? So here community cloud allows system as well as service to be accessed by the group of several organization. Community means what? Group of people. So here, if I go with community cloud, it allows the system as well as services that can be accessed by group of several organizations to share the information between organization and specific community. It is owned, managed and operated by one or more organization. That means the community clouds can be managed and organized and operated by one or more organization, and it combines both third party as well as community. And example here, healthcare community cloud. The best example for community cloud here is healthcare community cloud. Now, dear student, I'm going to have these services which is provided by the cloud computing. So, dear student, from the examination point of view, deployment model as well as cloud computing is very, very important. So, what are the different cloud services provided by the cloud? Here is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Anyway, dear student, at the beginning, I'm going to have infrastructure as a service. It's also known as hardware as a service. So, infrastructure as a service or hardware as a service, both are same. Now, dear student, think that I am working woman and I'm going to work in different places of our country. That means I'm going to work only for 3 months in Mysore and another 3 months in Delhi and another 3 months in Mumbai, like that. Okay, now think that how I'm going to stay. One option, I can able to own my own house. Another option, I can go with PG. That is nothing but paying guest. I can stay in PG. Okay, which one is better? It's better to go with paying guest. That means I can able to rent some room and I can able to arrange the room based on my wish. Similarly, if I go with cloud computing, I can able to buy the infrastructure. So, what is infrastructure here? There is nothing but the hardware, and I'm going to decide which hardware I want to use, which hardware I don't want to use, and which hardware, how long I want to use, what kind of data I want to store. All those things I'm going to decide. So here, cloud computing is responsible for providing only hardware. But I'm going to decide which hardware I want to use and when use, which type of data I'm going to store. All those things I'm going to decide. Here, I'm just going to pay only for the hardware or only for the infrastructure. So, here, infrastructure as a service is known as hardware as a service. It is a computing infrastructure managed over the internet. That means if I rent some house or room, I'm going to decide where I want to place the bed, where I want to place the AC, where I want to place the refrigerator, where I want to set the dining table. So here, if I consider infrastructure, I'm just going to get the infrastructure. That means I'm going to buy the infrastructure. Now I'm going to decide how I want to use the infrastructure. That is infrastructure as a service. So the main advantages of using infrastructure as a service is that it helps the user to avoid the cost as well as complexity of purchasing and managing the physical server. So dear student, if I consider DigitalOcean, Amazon Web Service or Microsoft Azure, Google Compute Engine, these are the example for infrastructure as a service. That means they are going to provide infrastructure as a service. Then the characteristics of infrastructure as a service, that is resources are available as a service. That means it's going to provide all the resources as a service. Even I can able to have CPU as my resource and it's as a service, or even I can able to have hard disk or input devices, output devices as a service. And all the services are highly scalable and dynamic and flexible, and it provides graphical user interface as well as application program interface based on the access and automated administrative tasks. These are the characteristics of infrastructure as a service. Now, if I go with platform as a service, PAAS cloud computing platform is created. That means by using cloud computing, I can able to get same working platform. So what I'm going to get? I'm going to get the actual working platform, and that is done by using platform as a service, so that user can able to develop their own applications as well as programs. So platform as a service cloud computing platform is created for the programmer to develop, test, run and manage the application. The best example I can able to consider online C compiler or online Java compiler or online Python compiler. That means I'm going to get same working platform. By using that platform, I can able to create my own programs. I can able to test my own programs as well as I can able to run my own program. And the characteristics here is accessible to various user via same development application. So if I consider C compiler or online Java compiler, it is stored in the remote server, but all the user can able to access that compiler. Integrates with web services as well as database. That means it's going to connect it with the web services as well as database. Now, the next characteristics here is built on virtualization technology. That means it's built on the concept called virtualization technology. That means it provides service virtually, means what? Logically, but physically it is not present. And it supports multi-languages as well as framework. And some of the example for platform as a service, that is Windows Azure or Google App Engine. These are the example for platform as a service. Now, the third type of service here is SaaS. That is software as a service. Based on the demand, I'm going to get the software, and it is known as software as a service. That is on-demand software. So it is a software in which the applications are hosted by the cloud service provider. What SaaS here? It is nothing but the software in which applications are hosted by the cloud service provider, and user can able to access these applications with the help of internet connection and web browser. Example: Big Commerce, Google App, Dropbox. These are the example for SaaS. So I'm going to get the software as my service. For that, I'm going to pay the money. These are the three different type of services provided by the cloud computing. Now, if I see the characteristics of SaaS, managed from a central location, that means software as a service is managed by the central location because it uses remote server. To manage that, we require some centralized location, and it is hosted on the remote server, and to access these services, I required internet connection, and users are not responsible for hardware or software updates. That means here all the services, that is software as services, are updated and managed by the service provider. That means users are not bothered about hardware updation as well as software updation. And the services are purchased on the pay as per use basis. That means how much I'm going to use. For that only I'm going to pay the amount. So these are the some of the service model provided by the cloud computing. Now let's discuss the difference between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. If I consider infrastructure as a service, it provides a virtual data center to store information and create platforms for application development, testing as well as deployment. If I consider platform, it provides virtual platforms and tools to create, test and deploy applications. If I consider software as a service, it provides web software and apps to complete business tasks. And if I consider infrastructure as a service, it provides access to the resources such as virtual machines, virtual storage, etc. And if I consider platform as a service, it provides runtime environment and deployment tools for applications. And if I consider software as a service, it provides software as a service to the end user. And if I consider infrastructure as a service, it is used by the network architecture, where if I go with PAAS, it is used by the developers, whereas if I go with SaaS, it is used by the end user. And the last difference here, infrastructure as a service provides only infrastructure. That means I'm going to get just infrastructure. If I go with platform, PAAS provides infrastructure as well as platform. That means I'm going to get the infrastructure, at the same time I'm going to get the working platform. Even if I go with SaaS, that is application as a service, then I'm going to get the infrastructure along with platform along with software. So these are the some of the difference between infrastructure platform as a service and software as a service. Now I'm going to have the concept called cloud service provider companies. That means we are going to have service, that is cloud service provider, and which companies are responsible for providing cloud service. That is, cloud service provider offers various services like software as a service or platform as a service or infrastructure as a service or network as a service and business applications, mobile applications and infrastructure in the cloud. So these cloud service providers host these services in their data center. So what is the job of the cloud service provider? Is to host all the services in their data center, and user can able to access these services through the cloud provider companies using the internet connection. So how the users are able to access these services? Through the company, that is cloud service provider company using internet connection and for their requirement. So here cloud service providers are nothing but the third party or the company responsible for hosting all the services in their data center based on the user need. Users are going to request the service, and for that they are going to pay the money. For that reason it is called pay on demand. So this is all about cloud computing. So dear student, in my today's session I started with what is cloud computing, and the different type of deployment model. Along with that, I have covered the different kinds of services provided by the cloud computing. In my next session, I'm going to deal with cyber security. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with the new concept called cyber security. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.